President Sisi urged continued investment in youth as driving force of Egypt's future. UN praises Egypt's decisive role in Gaza aid delivery and mediation efforts. And Egypt reaffirms a strategic partnership with the US and calls for deeper economic cooperation. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has inspected training activities at the Egyptian Military Academy in the new administrative capital. During his visit to the academy inside the Strategic Command headquarters, President Sisi reviewed ongoing training programs and followed up on the development of future military leaders, reaffirming his support for strengthening Egypt's defense capabilities. During his speech at the Egyptian Military Academy, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi urged continued investment in Egypt's youth as the driving force of the country's future. Al-Sisi praised the commitment and discipline he witnessed among cadets and said his regular visits aim to monitor the continuous development of training and educational programs that shape future leaders. He highlighted the Military Medical College as a response to the aspirations of young Egyptians and called on media, mosques and churches to play their part in driving positive societal change. On domestic affairs, Sisi hailed Egypt's economic and security resilience despite global and regional challenges. He urged learning from nations that overcame adversity through patience and hard work and praised the Egyptian people's awareness and strength as the region faces a critical turning point that requires careful and calculated decision-making. The United Nations has praised Egypt's decisive role in delivering aid to Gaza and mediating efforts to end the war. UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric said Secretary General Antonio Guterres values President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's key role in trying to end the Gaza conflict. He described Egypt's position as crucial, stressing that Cairo has focused on a diplomatic solution and worked intensively towards a negotiated settlement. Dujarric added that Gaza was a top priority during this year's General Assembly debates and urged continued efforts to achieve a ceasefire and secure the release of hostages. Egypt has reaffirmed its support for Sudan's unity, stability and territorial integrity during high-level talks in New York. Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati met his Sudanese counterpart Mohiddin Salem on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, stressing Egypt's commitment to preserving Sudan's national institutions and ending the humanitarian crisis through a ceasefire. Both sides highlighted plans to boost trade and economic ties and reaffirmed their shared stance on downstream Nile states. They rejected unilateral actions on the Nile and called for full respect of international law in managing its waters. Egypt and Angola are working to deepen bilateral ties and expand cooperation across key sectors. Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati praised the growing partnership during talks with Angolan Foreign Minister Tito Antonio at the UN General Assembly. He called for building on President João Lourenço's April visit and preparing the first joint committee meeting priorities include direct links, trade, investment, ICT, housing and infrastructure. Abdulati highlighted Egypt's expertise in major projects and development cooperation and welcomed Angola's support for Egyptian candidates, stressing the importance of a unified African voice in global forums. Egypt has reaffirmed the strength of its strategic partnership with Russia in talks on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati met Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and highlighted major joint projects including the Daba nuclear plant and the Russian industrial zone in the Suez Canal economic zone. Abdulati urged Russian investment and expanded cooperation in grain supply, tourism and aviation. The two ministers also discussed Gaza, Sudan, Libya, Syria, Lebanon and the Horn of Africa, agreeing to maintain close coordination to support peace, security and global stability. Egypt has reaffirmed its strategic partnership with the United States and called for deeper economic cooperation. Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati met members of the Business Council for International Understanding on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. He praised the strong Egypt-US partnership, especially in trade, investment and economic collaboration, and expressed Cairo's commitment to expanding mutual cooperation. Abdulati reviewed the outcomes of the Egypt-US Business Forum held in Cairo in May, which drew major American companies and said the next round is planned for early 2026. He also highlighted Egypt's economic reforms, renewable energy projects, and its competitive advantages, including its strategic location and trade agreements, which position it as a regional hub for African, Middle Eastern, and European markets. Abdulati invited U.S. firms to expand investments, localize supply chains, and build production platforms serving regional economies. Egypt showcased its growing role as a key African economic partner at the Inter-African Trade Fair hosted by Algeria. Algeria's ambassador to Cairo, Mohammed Soufiane Berash, said Egypt's strong presence at the continent's premier trade event underscored its position as a strategic bridge linking North Africa with the rest of the continent. 12 Egyptian public and private entities took part, attracting thousands of visitors and highlighting opportunities in industry, pharmaceuticals and technology. The event drew leaders and officials from across Africa and beyond, with former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo calling it a demonstration of Africa's strength. Algeria announced major initiatives including a fund for startups and opening its ports to landlocked nations backed by new rail and air links. Egypt is prioritizing education as a key pillar of its 2025-2026 development plan to build a more competitive and knowledge-based economy. Planning Minister Rani Al-Mashat met Education Minister Mohammed Abdul Latif to discuss the education sector's priorities under the new development strategy. She said education is central to building human capital, keeping pace with digital transformation and enhancing Egypt's global competitiveness. Al-Mashat highlighted major investments to improve education quality, integrate modern learning technologies, and produce highly skilled graduates. The plan aims to secure the right to education by boosting enrollments, reducing dropouts rates, narrowing the urban-rural education gap, expanding schools nationwide, and upgrading digital infrastructure. Egypt Finance Minister is set to meet German business leaders to boost trade and investment ties. Finance Minister Ahmed Kojak will attend the 2025 Egyptian-German Business Forum in Munich and Frankfurt on Thursday and Friday as part of efforts to strengthen what he called a partnership built on trust. Kojak will showcase Egypt's promising investment opportunities in key development sectors and hold meetings with senior officials and company executives. He will also outline ongoing government measures to improve the business climate, streamline procedures, reduce trade costs, and support export growth. Egypt rose 5 places in Fitch's Economic Openness Index, moving to 51st globally in September 2025, up from 56th in June. The improvement reflects the country's growing capacity to attract foreign investment and expand trade. Fitch credits ongoing reforms such as simplified investment procedures, expanded incentives, and the introduction of the Golden License for enhancing Egypt's business environment. With investment and exports driving growth, Fitch expects rising FDIs supported by Egypt's industrial strength and diverse export space. These efforts align with national goals to boost private investments to 11.9% of GDP and triple exports to $100 billion by fiscal year 2029-2030. Egypt and Saudi Arabia have discussed ways to boost cooperation in civil aviation and strengthen coordination within the ICAO. Civil Aviation Minister Sema Hifni met Saudi Transport and Logistics Minister Salah bin Nasser Al Jasser in Montreal on the sidelines of the ICAO General Assembly. Hifni said Egyptian-Saudi relations are a model of Arab integration in the aviation sector, with close coordination reinforcing both countries' roles in promoting air safety, sustainability, and international aviation development. Al-Jasser described Egypt as a strategic partner and said ongoing cooperation reflects shared views on challenges and opportunities within the ICAO. The two ministers discussed enhancing collaboration on air safety, sustainability, and expertise exchange, as well as coordinating positions on key agenda items, including elections for the ICAO Council. Egypt's wood technology company, the WO Tech, launched a 210 million euros plant turning rice straw, once a major pollution source, into eco-friendly medium-density fiberboard. Using advanced German technology, the plant began production in 2024, making Egypt the second country after the US to adopt this process. The project reduces harmful smoke, creates jobs, and supplies sustainable materials for local furniture and construction industries, producing 460,000 tons annually with strict environmental standards. Egypt's weather agency says tomorrow will bring mild autumn conditions with early morning fog and hot daytime temperatures. The Egyptian Meteorological Authority forecasts pleasant weather in the early morning and at night, with hot conditions across most regions during the day. Forecast Director Mahmoud Shaheen said fog is expected between 4 and 8 a.m. from northern areas to Greater Cairo and northern Upper Egypt, sometimes dense along the northwestern coast, Canal cities, and central Sinai. Low clouds may bring light drizzle in some northern areas, though it will not affect daily activity. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin for this hour. Here is a recap of the Egyptian bulletin. President Sisi urged continued investment in youth as driving force of Egypt's future. UN praises Egypt's decisive role in Gaza aid delivery and mediation efforts. Egypt reaffirms strategic partnership with US and calls for deeper economic cooperation. So for now, remember to stay updated by following Qnews for the latest developments. Many thanks for watching.